You are listening to Fox Radio 910 and 104.3. I want to welcome you to Let's Talk About, our weekly radio program sponsored by Crowning Touch Senior Moving Services of Roanoke, Virginia. My name is Linda Balentine, the president of Crowning Touch and your host for this series. I interview local characters, service providers, politicians, teachers, entrepreneurs, and business professionals, and each one is dedicated to improving life in our valley. Every person has an interesting perspective to share from all walks of life. So, let's begin today's interview. Welcome to today's program on Let's Talk About. I'm your host, Linda Balentine, and I'm just delighted to bring you a story rooted in heritage, hard work, and heart. I'm out here in the workshop with Courtney Henderson of Cave Hill Dairy Farm in Troutville, Virginia. She's an extraordinary gal who represents the sixth generation of her family to run this historic farm. From milking cows before sunrise to embracing new innovations in agriculture, Courtney carries forward a legacy that dates back over a century with her dad and grandpa, Jeff and Jerry. Today we'll talk about the joys and challenges of dairy farming, the evolution of agriculture, and what it means to carry on a tradition while forging your own path. Whether you're a fan of local farming, passionate about sustainability, or just love a good story, you'll want to stay tuned. And I can't wait to kick this off because, Courtney, I just wish everybody could meet you because I think you're an astounding woman with a great education who is here, supporting, learning as you go, because I know that you're going to learn something every year in this game because things are changing so much. Tell me a little bit about the history of the farm because the history is one of the most special things about this place.
Yeah, so the history is actually what keeps me coming back. I love the legacy of our farm. I love how we started, where we're going, and everything about it. So the farm started in 1749. That is when my ancestors came here, and we have been in this spot since 1749.
What were they raising?
We raised everything from cows to pigs to chickens to horses. There are still old pictures of us with mules hauling wagons, It's incredible how far we've come since then.
What national heritage was your family?
Scotch-Irish.
Yeah. All right. Let's hear it for the Scotch-Irish.
Yeah.
All righty. So let's talk about then some of the changes. So 1749, that was a long time ago.
Yep. So 1749, we started out as we were just taking care of ourselves.
Okay.
In 1900, that's when we switched over to conventional dairy farming. So basically that meant that we were producing milk for hundreds of people instead of just ourselves anymore.
So how did you get it off the farm? There weren't refrigerated trucks in 1900. Did people come here? What'd you do? Take it into town? I mean, how did you deal with it?
So that is kind of a really cool story. So when I was in high school, I love writing. That is one of my passions on top of agriculture. And so I wrote this story about how we had a shed that we used to put the milk cans in the creek water so it would keep it cold.
Sure.
Did I know that's actually how they used to do it? No, I completely came up with that. And then I came home and I was telling my dad, and he's like, yeah, that's what the old spring house is. It's exactly what we used to do. So the trucks would come and they would pick it up, or back then before vehicles, they used to take the wagon and take it to town. And between here and Daleville, which is about 5 miles, there used to be 3 dairy farms. So, I mean, it's crazy to think how much has changed since then because now we're one of 4 in the county.
Well, no one minded raw milk back then. They didn't have any legislation against raw milk. I'm sure, did they sell butter and cheese, and do you know?
Just milk.
Okay.
Is all I've ever been able to find out. We also sold eggs, and we sold some chickens and such. But as far as I know, we've always been pretty much a dairy farm.
So where do you sell the milk? Where does it go when it leaves here?
So the milk that leaves our farm, it gets picked up every other day by the milk truck drivers. And it goes from here to Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where it is processed.
Wow.
And then most of the time it comes back up here on your milk gallons of milk you have. So Kroger brand, Food Lion brand, Great Value brand, any of those could potentially be from my farm. There's this really cool website called where'smymilkfrom.com.
Really?
And you can actually go to that website and type in the code on top of your milk jug.
Wow.
And it'll tell you where it came from.
Wow. That is the neatest thing ever. All righty. So you were born here. I mean, right?
Yep.
You were born here. You're 29 years old, sharing one of your most intimate secrets. and you have two brothers.
Yep.
And they are in Richmond.
Yep.
And they are not part of the farming operation. So you, as a woman, fell in love with the farm from a very young age,
Yep.
right? You were Future Farmers of America gal, right?
Yep.
And so it goes without saying that you know every intricate detail about what the heck goes on here, correct?
I know a lot. I wouldn't say that I know everything. When I graduated from Virginia Tech in 2018, I graduated with a dairy enterprise management degree. So I have a business and a science degree. And I remember the day that I came home, my dad looked at me and he said, "All right, your education starts now." So every day I'm learning something new. Every day I'm using what I have learned either on the farm or from school in order to better something or to accomplish something. So it's amazing to see how well everything works together.
No kidding.
So.
And I know today you've got 3 John Deeres here, right?
Yep.
And you've got 2 with air conditioning. One your dad is going to be in the hayfield. Your granddad's going to be in the other air conditioning one. You don't get the air conditioning.
Nope.
So it'll be 100 degrees and you're going to be out there in the hayfield today. Doing what? What are you doing today?
So today I'm raking hay. So when we make hay, especially this time of year, we make different types of hay. When we make alfalfa hay, it's very much we cut it the day before, we get it up the very next day, and we wrap it in order to hold in the nutrients. The hay we're in today is old grass hay that we'll feed to some of our cows. So we mowed it 2 days ago. Today I'm going to rake the field. So I'm going to put the hay in nice, neat little rows so my dad can go behind me and bale it up.
Okay. And so you have lots of buildings here. You have how many acres? How many acres?
So we own a total of 450 acres, 288 here on the main farm. And that's everything from Catawba Road up to the Appalachian Trail. And a long time ago, the Appalachian Trail actually had to buy land from us in order to put the trail on it.
Really? Well, and as I'm sitting here and looking out through these big barn, shed, workshop doors, there's a gorgeous mountain out here, covered with trees, with good meadow leading up to it. And keeping even the fencing up on this place is sort of a deal, isn't it?
Yeah. So if looking at the shop on the mountain, we up to the power lines is where we have pasture field.
Okay.
Anything from the power lines up is under a conservation easement, so no one can ever build on this land.
Okay, that's nice. Do you ever get any of your firewood? Do you use firewood here for anything other than
Not
maybe
much.
inside the house? No, you've got other stuff that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about all of these little cows. Tell me about the whole process, all right? So I want to know from the time a cow is born, and you tag it yellow tags for girls and the
orange tags for the boys.
Orange tags for the boys. Walk me through this. Let's grow a cow right now while you and I are talking. Okay.
All right, let's do it. So our cows that are getting ready to have their babies, when they are about 60 days from having their babies, they're taken out of the milk herd and put on maternity leave. So they get to just go graze in the pasture field, relax, do whatever they want. When they have their calf, they are left with their calf for 12 to 24 hours, depending on if the cow takes the calf, depending on if the calf is getting enough food, and also depending on the calf itself. If the calf is born with weak legs, then we take it away and make sure that we get it to where it can eat and grow.
You want that colostrum, don't you? Don't you want those little ones to get the colostrum? It's pretty important to them.
Yeah. So when they're born, we actually give them a supplement colostrum that has all the nutrients and such to ensure that they're getting exactly what they need when they're born. Once they are removed from their moms, which sounds awful, but dairy cows are really horrible mothers. They will walk away from the calf. I've had some step on their calves. So we remove them for safety's sake. Also, a dairy cow produces 80 pounds of milk a day on average.
Wow.
So a calf can't eat that. So we make sure that the calf's not overeating and the cow's getting milked out right.
Right.
So the baby calves are fed colostrum for 3 days after they're born. And then we switch them over to a milk replacer, which is 20% fat and 20% protein.
Okay.
And that ensures that the calf can grow and develop correctly. So we put the calves in what are called hutches, which are just exaggerated large dog houses.
Right.
We feed them water and grain twice a day and make sure that they are taken care of 24/7. During the summertime, they are bedded with wood chips to keep them cool. And during the wintertime, we give them straw in order to give them something to kind of snuggle into.
And that's also the time you told me when you go ahead and put the paste on to dehorn them, because you don't want cows with horns out there. It makes life just...
Yeah, so when they're about a week old is when I will typically go down and we put on this, it's called a caustic paste. and it'll actually take the horns off before the horns even grow.
Right.
I also vaccinate them at that point in time to prevent them from getting pneumonia and other digestive diseases.
Do cows need their feet trimmed like horses?
They do, but our cattle don't. We don't have a hoof trimmer at my farm because our cattle walk on gravel trails.
Right.
And that keeps their hooves nicely trimmed for us.
Yeah, so that's a natural way. All righty. So how long did they stay down in these exaggerated doghouse situations?
Yeah, so they're in the hutches for about 3 to 4 months, and then we move them into one of the barns. And when they're put into the barns, they're put into groups, so they're socialized at that point. Because when they're in the hutches, they're just individually housed. When they get into the barns, that's when they get to be together, they get to be socialized, and they get introduced to hay as well. So hay is very important for growing their stomachs in order to make them be able to digest food better.
I gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
And I met some of those today.
Yep.
They're very friendly. They're almost like pet cows because they've been handled and nurtured so much by humans from day one.
Yep. My dad's his main responsibility / his favorite thing is to build the calf. So, and by saying that, I mean, he's the one that feeds the calf. He's the one that takes care of the calf and does everything in his power to make sure that baby calf gets the amount of milk that they need and is healthy up until they're about 3 months old. Then when we move them into the barns, it becomes all of our responsibilities, but he wants to be the sole person responsible for the milk just because of how important it is to give them a basis to grow off of.
Do you, are you growing your cow herd, or are you happy maintaining and comfortable with the size that it is? How many babies are we raising here?
I'm happy maintaining what I have. We have around 100 calves a year.
Wow.
And we calve out year round.
Right.
So.
You calve out, so that means you have calves being born
constantly
year round.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, I hadn't heard of that.
Yeah.
Because I just didn't know. I thought you just turned the bull in there, and then you take them out a certain time, and you can expect your calves within a few months of, whatever. Do you artificially inseminate?
Yes. So my dad and I are both, my dad, granddad, and I are all 3 trained for artificial insemination. When I was 17, I received my license. And then when I was in college, I got a second license along with a license to teach it. So I do teach a little bit as well. And I breed cattle for other folks in the county as well.
Oh, isn't that interesting? So you really are all over the place. I'm so impressed. Mm-hmm. Were there any other women in your family that took a major part? I know, and you know what? I understand that your grandma taught school for a long time to help support, the farm. And that is, that's just as important as getting out here and, milking or doing whatever else needs to be done. Yeah. But that's about almost what has to happen. Do you know of any other women in your family historically when you look back over 6 generations? Was there anybody that was ever part of a story?
Not to my knowledge. I've asked here and there about it, and they said that it really wasn't the woman's job.
Right.
It was very much believed that a woman had a place and a man had a place.
That's right.
And that's just how it was. And then I've chosen to break that mold every single day.
What do they call it? It can't be called a glass ceiling out here on the farm, but whatever.
Not much. I don't know what you would call it.
You jumped the fence.
Yep.
That's what you've done. You have jumped the fence. Are there any other goals that the family has? If you aren't going to raise your dairy farm up, you've got all of these buildings. Just maintaining, these sheds and silos and all that stuff. Isn't that a big deal? Do you need to put another building up? I know that this building we were in now was built in 2000. Are there any other buildings that you need or that you wish you had?
Right now, we're kind of in a stagnant situation in a sense. We're kind of pretty comfortable with what we have. My 15-year goal is to eventually go to having robots to milk the cows and to also integrate a beef herd. Because I would love to sell meat off the farm, and eventually I want to sell cheese and meat off the farm.
Yeah.
But obviously that's 15 years from now, because something like that cannot happen overnight.
Well, robots will be much more affordable then. They're already getting robots now to do all sorts of jobs, even inside a house. Mm-hmm. And they're thinking that, they might be able to sell them for, even $40,000, $60,000. Yeah. And other than the maintenance, that would be a real inexpensive way to go. You might want to even contact some of these robotic companies.
Yeah.
And tell them that you're willing to put yourself out there as a testing ground for robots that learn how to milk. Because I don't know, how many dairies are there in Virginia?
So in Virginia, there's a little over 600 dairies. Some of the largest dairies are in Pittsylvania County, and they're anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000 head. I'm not sure exactly what the largest one is, but I know that I have been on several of those. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is AI, do you use AI at all in your operation, or are you looking to? I mean, you're looking down the road to robotics, but is there anything else that it helps you do? Does record keeping, can you use it for that? Who does your record keeping for all of this stuff?
Me.
Oh my gosh.
My dad and I have a notebook in the office that we keep records of everything on the cattle. We keep records on all of the equipment and different things like that, as well as our nutrient management plan. So Dad takes care of the nutrient management plan side. I take care of the cow side mostly, but we do everything together as well.
Right.
So we keep a notebook in the office, and then once a month I go in and I put it all in our computer database.
Yeah, wow. That's such a deal. All righty. So a typical day on the farm. Did we finish walking these cows? Did we finish growing them up? Let's finish. We need to pick them up somewhere. So they're going to come out of what time would you take the girls and the boys out of those little sheds when they're babies? How old are they?
About 3 to 4 months is when they go into the barn. And then they go into the barn and they're in our calf barn, which was built in 1987. They're in there from the time they're like 4 months old till about a year old. And then when they're a year old, they get sent across the road to our 60-acre pasture where they get to experience grass for the first time, and they get fed a certain diet and everything to help them grow, maintain, and also build muscles.
Happy day. And the little steers are still with you.
They're still. Yep, they're steers.
Okay.
They're still with them at that point. It's from that pasture where we split them up, and the steers will go to one pasture, and the heifers will come back over here. So the heifers being our females, the heifers come over here. We breed them. Once they're bred, they get sent down the road to a maternity pasture.
How old are they when they're bred?
About 16 to 18 months.
Okay, they're not even 2.
Yeah, sometimes they're 2. It just depends.
Yeah.
We look at size more than we do anything else.
Sure.
So if I don't think that heifer's ready to have a baby, she's not going to have a baby
I got
yet.
you. But the neat thing is that you artificially inseminate, and you can just wait 6 months.
Yeah.
As opposed to wait another natural farmer's cycle, which so frequently was a year. If you don't do it this spring, then you know.
Right.
So that's cool. What is the gestation period for a cow?
Same as a human, about
Really?
9 months.
Wow. All righty. So you turn them out, and then you did pick it up. You said that, they go and they're on maternity leave for, 60 days.
Yeah.
And then they have the cows. And then after you wean that baby, then you go ahead and put them on the milkers, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Tell me about that. Okay, because no one's milking by hand around here. You milk 125 a day, you said.
Yep, we're milking 125 cows twice a day, once at 5:30 in the morning and again at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. These hotter months, we're going to be pushing milking back just because it is so unbearably hot right now. And my cows, on average, weigh around 1,700 pounds. So, I mean, that's a lot of weight to be carrying around in this heat. So we're trying to make it as manageable as possible for them.
Does the heat affect their milk production?
Oh, yes.
I bet
they
it slows
drop
it.
bad.
Sure.
So, but yeah, so they come in the parlor and we wipe them off with a rag and we get any dirt and mud or anything off of their teats.
Right.
And then we strip the teats out looking for any funny looking milk and making sure that everything looks correct.
Make sure they don't have any sores, that you don't have to use any of the, udder cream.
Yeah, anything that looks abnormal automatically gets put in a bucket milker. We don't put it in the tank because, for one, I don't want that going in the tank.
Right, sure.
And for two, I need to make sure I can figure out what's going on with that cow.
I gotcha.
So once they are stripped out, we dip them with a sanitizer. It stays on there for 15 seconds, and then we wipe it off with a rag. And then we have automatic takeoffs in our herd. So we push a button, the milker comes down.
It just releases, right? Those cups release.
There is a flow meter in there. So when the cow starts going down in milk, it automatically comes off. And that keeps us from over milking the cows, and so it keeps them healthier.
Gosh, that's terrific. So then how do you clean out those cups? Do you dip them in something? What do you do with them then?
They actually go through a full-fledged wash cycle. So they get an acid and a chlorine mix.
Wow.
So,
well, it sounds like you could really count on good quality milk from Cave Hill Dairy because you're so vigilant. That's what it sounds like to me. What are some of the biggest challenges you think are facing today's dairy farmers? Farmers in general seem to be having a hard time. I think they need to be elevated and given whatever breaks we can give them. But what do you specifically see in the dairy industry?
I mean, labor is the number one issue everybody has. It's hard to find anyone to do a job as intense as dairy farming or as farming in general. So I will never be one that'll say that dairy farming is harder than beef farming or harder than poultry. Everybody faces their own challenges. Everybody has their own deals. So I believe anybody that works in the agricultural field is dealing with their own separate challenges and their own hard work. And it's amazing that anybody is able to be out here doing this. So specifically in the dairy world, I mean, milk prices aren't great. Feed prices are higher, and it's just hard to go.
What causes the biggest fluctuation? If you were to try and tag something, you're sitting there looking at it because you've got to try and figure out how to overcome it or how to compensate for it or how to cut back on costs, but you've got X number of cows and you got to feed them. You don't have much wiggle room.
There's no wiggle room.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where I'm very much one of those people that's like, okay, it is what it is. Let's figure it out and keep going. So, and with milk prices, I hate making it like a pun, but milk is a very fluid market.
Right.
Milk constantly dips, it rises. There's no consistency. I can't guarantee what my price will be next month. I can't guarantee what it'll be next week. It's constantly changing.
Wow. That sounds like it would be such a hard business to run. Let's talk about some of the rewarding parts of being a dairy farmer. Let's talk about the good stuff.
Yeah.
What is some of the most rewarding parts besides the fact that we're just sitting here on coolers talking into these mics with this beautiful view and there's a wonderful breeze wafting through here. We step out of this shade, it's going to be burning hot. Okay, but right now, it's got to be a relaxing environment most of the time, isn't it?
It can be. It can be stressful too. I mean, at the end of the day, our number one concern on the farm is animal care and animal comfort. So we spend all day long either in the field making the food for the cows or in the barns cleaning them up for the cows and doing everything to make sure that they're taken care of. So it's
You wait on them hand and foot.
Yeah, pretty much. So it can be stressful at times, especially when weather comes into play and there's a storm on the way or it's going to be 100 and something degrees today and we've got to figure out how to keep everybody cool and comfortable. But
and so you bring them in. Do you have fans on them? I mean, how do you deal with that?
We do. We have fans in all of our barns so the cows can get somewhat of relief. We have a sprinkler system that we are still working on fixing from last year. So I put them up for the first time last year just to see if the cows would even like a sprinkler system, and our cows absolutely loved it.
So they didn't freak out. They weren't running from the
No,
sprinkler.
I thought they would. I really thought they would because cows are creatures of habit. They absolutely hate any kind of change. So when I turned them on the first time, I was expecting them to freak out. Instead, they all just kind of looked up and they were like, oh, what is this? And then they realized that they were getting cooled off. And so at that point, it became, now we have to push you out of the misters and we have to make sure that you're actually getting milked and not just standing here all day.
What is the most challenging season for you? I mean, you spend so much time outdoors, but is there less kind of field work? I know that there's always work for a farmer. You're working on equipment or you're working on your buildings or you're doing something else when you aren't planting. Mm-hmm. But do you have a favorite season? Or what's the most relaxed season? Is there such a thing?
So my favorite season, honestly, is fall and harvest because all year long we're working towards building something. Like our corn is 6 inches out of the ground right now. Well, knowing that we just planted it last week, it's already starting to grow. It's wonderful watching it grow, watching it proliferate, and seeing what our final yield is going to be at the very end of the year. So I like fall just because that's harvest. That's when we're getting the corn harvested. It's where we're seeing what we actually made this year. But we also have calves born like crazy. So my heifers that I'm breeding on, they're all calving in. So I get to see how they're going to do as cows in the herd now. Right. So I like fall. It's stressful year round. In the winter, you deal with freezing. You deal with waters always being cold. You're dealing with all of that. Summertime, you're dealing with extreme heat and the frustration of getting different jobs done. And I hate bees, and bees are everywhere this time of year.
They are.
So
how long does a cow stay in residence here on your farm? What is the lifespan during which time you're milking them?
So the average age on my farm is 6 years old, and that is considered an older age for a dairy cow. A lot of farms that I know, they'll sell their cows around 4 to 5 years of age because that's just when they're getting past their prime. My farm, this started way back when my granddad was still breeding cattle. We have always used genetics to make sure that we have cattle that can last. We look at longevity. We look at health. If the cow has better health traits than milk traits, if the bull that we're selecting has better health traits than milk traits, then we'll probably use it just because we care about the animal. Milk is obviously important. I mean, we're a dairy farm,
Right.
but at the end of the day, I want something that's going to last.
Longevity. Yeah, you want longevity. And probably, the rate at which you feed them and care and nourish them has everything to do with extending what they're genetically programmed to go with anyway. I understand that over the last few weeks, you've had tour groups of kids out here. Tell me a little bit about how you partner with local schools and the tours that you offer on the farm.
Yeah, it's been crazy. It has been an insane June. We started off the first week of June on June 5th. We partnered with Camp Leo, which is Boco Camp Leo, which is a summer camp that the resource officers in Balentine County put on. And there's about 50 to 60 kids that are in this camp. They learn everything from leadership skills to team building skills, and they get to go on field trips and experience things they probably wouldn't have had they not been in the camp.
What's BOCO stand for?
Balentine County.
Right, okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
All
so they approached us a few months ago, and they said, hey, can we bring them here this year? None of these kids have ever been on a dairy farm, and it'd be cool for them to actually experience where their milk comes from and the people that make it. And I said, yeah, sure. Well, actually, Dad is the one that said, yeah, we can do it. And I looked at my dad and I'm like, I'm going to remember that you're the one that said we were doing this. So first week of June, we had 52 kids here. And then the second week, we had daycare centers here where I had 12 one day, 27 the next day. And then last week, we finally finished up with 51 kids.
And you had WDBJ 7 because they were out here, and I saw that on YouTube or wherever I saw it.
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to invite people to go to your Facebook page. This is a busy operation out here. This isn't a place where people can just stop in, but they can really find out what is going on your dairy farm by going to Cave Hill Dairy Farm on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And you actually, what is your program with the schools? You do, I'll just cut it short here because the truth is we've had an inspiring journey here and it's all we have time today to talk about. But from pasture to progress, I really want to give you a big thank you, Courtney. You really deserve it for giving us this time. You gave us a behind the scenes look at life on Cave Hill Dairy. And it's clear that you're not just preserving your family's legacy, you're building a future for farming in our community. And, we really value that. Yeah, so for people who'd like to learn more and support their local dairy, be sure to follow Cave Hill Dairy Farm on Facebook. And until next time, I'm Linda Balentine, and this has been another edition of Let's Talk About, where we shine a light on the people who keep our community growing strong. Thanks again. Bye-bye. You've been listening to Let's Talk About, courtesy of Crowning Touch Senior Moving Services of Roanoke, Virginia, the only moving company with a consignment shop, auction house, and real estate division. We are a one-stop shop for any senior making a move. Check out our website at crowningtouchusa.com. Or if you are planning a move, call Anna at 540-982-5800 to arrange a free estimate. And don't forget to check out our monthly browse and bid auctions at 6712 Williamson Road in Roanoke, where you can bid online on over 1,800 items each month. Meanwhile, let's get back together next Friday at noon for more of Let's Talk About on Fox 910 and 104.3.